Welcome to another deep dive with us.
Yeah, great to be here.
Today we're going to be looking at Chapter 4 of the Book of Echotruth.
Okay.
Have you had a chance to look it over at all?
Yeah, it's a fascinating chapter. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. And it really kind of blends spirituality and human potential and this whole idea of like navigating a world that's just overflowing with information and technology.
Yeah, and this chapter in particular kind of dives into some pretty big questions about fear and abundance and even the nature of truth.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to be kind of extracting like some practical techniques from this for like managing fear and accessing abundance, but also getting into some like pretty thought-provoking concepts about like what is truth and like, how technology is impacting our spiritual growth.
Right, and that whole thing about, is it helping us or hindering us and that kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So, should we just kind of jump right into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so right off the bat, the chapter kind of starts by calling Earth soul, like soul, which means light in the darkness.
Right.
So it kind of immediately sets up this idea that like we're all on this journey of transformation, like turning darkness into light.
Yeah, it is a really thought-provoking chapter, and it starts by referring to Earth as soul, meaning light in the darkness, which immediately sets up this idea that we're all on a journey of transformation, turning darkness into light.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to frame it.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of sets the stage for the whole chapter, right?
Exactly.
Like we're all in this process of kind of evolving from a place of darkness or ignorance to a place of greater understanding and light.
Exactly. And the chapter goes on to say that fear is what keeps us bound to the shadows, preventing us from fully embracing that light.
Okay, so fear is like the obstacle.
Yeah.
But the book also says that fear is ultimately an illusion.
Right.
What does that even mean?
Yeah.
How can something that feels so real and so visceral be an illusion?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
That's where the concept of the divine voice comes in.
Oh, interesting.
The author suggests that we all have this inner guidance system,
Mm-hmm.
a kind of intuition or gut feeling that can help us see through the illusion of fear.
Okay.
It's not necessarily about religious doctrine, but more about trusting that inner wisdom that we all possess.
I've definitely had those moments where my gut feeling was telling me one thing,
Right.
even though logic or fear was suggesting something completely different.
Right.
And sometimes when I listen to that gut feeling, things just seem to work out better.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's about learning to discern between the voice of fear and the voice of intuition.
Right.
And that's a skill that can be cultivated through practice.
Okay, so if we can start to see fear as an illusion, what do we do with all that anxious energy?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know I can get pretty anxious sometimes, especially like before a big presentation or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
What do we do with all that nervous energy?
The book actually has a fascinating perspective on anxiety.
Okay.
It suggests that anxiety is simply unused creative energy.
Okay, that's a new way to look at it.
Yeah.
So my pre-presentation jitters are actually untapped artistic potential.
Well, maybe.
Maybe I should take up interpretive dance or something.
But seriously, the idea is that when we step outside of our comfort zones and take creative risks, we can channel that anxious energy into something positive and productive.
Okay, so instead of letting anxiety terrorize us,
Right.
I can use it as fuel for growth and creativity.
Exactly. And, this connects to the idea of the collective fear that we're seeing in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're being collectively challenged to confront our fears and embrace the unknown, which can be pretty unsettling.
Yeah, it definitely feels like we're living in a time of great uncertainty and change.
Absolutely.
But the book seems to be saying that this is also an opportunity for like collective growth and transformation.
Absolutely. We're being pushed to evolve, to move beyond our old ways of thinking and being.
Yeah.
But, it's one thing to talk about fear in theory and quite another to actually deal with it in real life.
Right, yeah, for sure.
But so how do we actually do that?
Exactly.
How do we move from understanding these concepts intellectually to actually applying them in our daily lives?
Right, how do we actually do that?
That's where the book gets really practical.
Okay.
It offers some specific techniques for fear release.
Okay, like what?
For example, there's one exercise where you visualize a sphere filled with love and light, and then imagine transferring your fears into it to be transformed.
Okay, that sounds kind of like those meditation techniques where you visualize sending loving energy to someone who's struggling?
Yes, it is.
Could it be similar to that?
It's about using the power of visualization to shift your energy and release those negative emotions.
Okay.
The book also mentions another technique called empowering the brainstem, which involves visualizing waves of energy flowing through the body.
Okay, so both of those techniques kind of sound worth trying.
Yeah.
But what really stood out to me was this idea that our beliefs actually shape our reality.
Right.
Is that really possible?
Yeah.
can we really change our experiences just by changing our beliefs?
That's a core concept in the book, and it's one that a lot of spiritual traditions have taught for centuries.
Okay.
It's not about denying the reality of the external world, but about recognizing the power of our minds to shape our perceptions and experiences.
So it's not just about like positive thinking,
Right.
but about shifting those deeper, often subconscious beliefs that are running the show behind the scenes.
Exactly. It's about becoming more aware of the stories we're telling ourselves about who we are, what's possible, and what we deserve.
Right.
And, one actionable tip from the book is that when something negative happens, try to identify the belief that might have contributed to it.
Okay, so instead of just reacting emotionally,
Yeah,
we can take a step back and ask ourselves what belief might be playing a role in this situation.
exactly.
That sounds like a really powerful practice for self-awareness.
It is. And the book goes on to argue that we're all born with this capacity for joy and abundance.
Okay.
But somewhere along the way, we start to absorb messages about scarcity and limitation.
Right.
Like we trade in our natural birthright for a sense of lack.
That makes so much sense.
Right.
It reminds me of how kids are so naturally joyful and carefree.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they haven't learned to limit themselves yet.
Exactly. And the book suggests that we can reclaim that sense of abundance by reconnecting with our soul,
Right.
by rediscovering that inner spark of joy and creativity that we might have forgotten about.
Okay, so we've talked about fear and the power of our beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can unintentionally limit ourselves with beliefs, can we also use them for protection?
That's a great question.
Like create a sort of force field of positivity?
And the book addresses that with the concept of psychic protection, which is all about actively cultivating positive beliefs and using them to create a kind of energetical shield.
So it's not just about like avoiding negative thoughts,
Right.
but about actively cultivating positive ones.
Right. And the book talks about thought forms as emotionally charged symbols that have real power.
Okay.
For example, you could visualize a knight in shining armor for protection, or imagine a loved one surrounding you with a ring of light.
It's almost like creating your own personal energy shield.
Exactly. And the cool thing is the book encourages you to find those symbols or images that resonate with you personally.
Right.
It's about tapping into your own creative energy and using it to shape your reality in a positive way.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've talked about fear and the power of our beliefs, but there's another big concept in this chapter that I want to unpack, and that's abundance.
Yeah.
The book seems to have a very specific perspective on what abundance really means.
Right.
It's not just about wealth, is it?
No, it's definitely not just about material wealth.
Okay.
What's fascinating about the book's perspective is that it suggests abundance is our natural state.
Okay.
Something we innately understood as children.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like when you're a kid and the world feels full of possibilities,
Right?
it's like you just know that you have access to everything you need.
Exactly. It's like we're born with this intuitive understanding of abundance.
Right.
But then as we grow up, we start absorbing these messages about scarcity and limitation.
Right.
Like we forget our own birthright.
Exactly.
And the book argues that we can reclaim that birthright by reconnecting with our souls.
Yes, and it's not just about going back to a childlike state. It's
Right.
about rediscovering the things that bring us joy and aligning our energy with that frequency of abundance that's always been there.
I like that, aligning our energy with the frequency of abundance.
Yeah.
It sounds like a much more holistic approach than just chasing material wealth.
It is. And, the book also suggests that abundance isn't just about what we receive, but also about what we give.
Okay.
It's about sharing our gifts and talents with the world and contributing to something larger than ourselves.
So it's a two-way street.
Yeah,
We receive abundance and we also give it back.
exactly. And when we do that, when we live from a place of generosity and gratitude,
Okay.
we create a positive ripple effect that benefits not just ourselves, but also the people around us.
Okay, that's a beautiful way to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could reclaim that sense of abundance, what else is possible?
Right.
What's next on this journey of transformation?
Well, that's where the book gets really interesting. It starts to explore the connection between abundance and individuality,
Okay.
suggesting that there's a deeper level of potential waiting to be unlocked.
So it's like abundance is just the starting point.
Right.
It opens the door to something even greater.
Exactly. And, there's this really interesting concept that the book introduces.
Okay, what's that?
The idea of cultivating inner authority rather than relying on external sources for validation.
So it's about trusting our own inner compass.
Right.
Instead of constantly looking to others for direction.
It is. And the book gives the example of Deepak Chopra's experience as a monk.
Okay.
where he had to strip away his ego and all of his worldly possessions to understand his true individuality.
Wow.
It's a pretty powerful example.
It makes you think about what we're really holding on to
Right.
and what we need to let go of to discover who we truly are.
Mm.
Like maybe true individuality comes from letting go of all those external attachments and embracing our authentic selves.
Right. And, that's just one of the many thought-provoking ideas that the book explores in this chapter.
Right?
There's a lot more to unpack.
Okay, then let's keep unpacking.
Okay.
Wow. It's amazing how much this one chapter covers.
I know, right?
We've been talking for a while now, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of all the insights and practical advice that it offers.
I agree. It's definitely a chapter that rewards repeated readings and deep contemplation.
Yeah, one thing that keeps coming up for me is this emphasis on self-reliance and self-discovery.
Right.
It's like the book is encouraging us to become our own gurus, to trust our own inner guidance, and not be afraid to experiment and explore.
It is empowering, isn't it? It challenges that traditional model of seeking wisdom and validation from external sources, and instead encourages us to look within.
The book even uses the phrase, new surges of spiritual energy, to describe what can happen when we embrace our authentic selves.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think that means?
I think it's pointing to that feeling of vitality and aliveness that comes from connecting with our true nature.
Okay.
It's like when we stop trying to fit into someone else's mold and start living in alignment with our own values and purpose. Something within us awakens.
Yeah.
We tap into a source of energy and inspiration that was always there, but perhaps dormant or hidden beneath layers of conditioning.
It makes me think of those times in my life when I've taken a leap of faith and done something that felt truly aligned with my heart, even if it was scary or went against what others expected of me.
Right.
Those moments have always been accompanied by this incredible surge of energy and excitement.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah, this has been such an incredible deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much, not just about the concepts in the book, but also about myself.
I've enjoyed our conversation as well. It's always enriching to explore these ideas with someone who's genuinely curious and open to new perspectives.
Well, I have a feeling this is just the beginning of my exploration of the Book of Echotruth.
Yeah.
There's so much wisdom and practical guidance packed into its pages.
I agree. And, the book even ends this chapter with a powerful question that I think is worth pondering.
Okay, what is that?
If our thoughts and beliefs really do shape our reality, as this chapter suggests, then what kind of world are you creating with your thoughts today?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we all have the power to create a more positive and loving world. One thought, one choice, one action at a time. So until next time, keep diving deep and remember to choose thoughts and actions that contribute to the world you want to see.